Hey everybody, and welcome back to another ranking video. Today's concept is going to be ranking every MLB team's best overall player. I'm going to organize them into 5 separate categories. Slam dunk future Hall of Famer, elite right now, iffy future Hall of Famer, consistent all-star caliber player, great, need to see a little bit more, and then very good, occasional all-star upside. Now, this is going to be based off of what they did most recently in 2025, and then as well, the overall trajectory of their career. There are some guys who've had an elite last couple seasons, but when you look at the body of work in their career, they're probably not going to be something like a future Hall of Famer, right? And then there are going to be other guys who maybe had a bit of a down 2025, but the trajectory overall of their career is high enough that they're going to be in consideration for a spot on this list. Now, everybody's ranged pretty randomly over here. I didn't arrange it in any kind of organized fashion, so we can just grab people from the top, starting with Shohei Ohtani, slam dunk future Hall of Famer. I mean, what really can you say? If you were looking at the start of his career just from the perspective of a hitter, he probably is a future Hall of Famer anyway. And if you're looking at it when throwing in the fact that he too has been an amazing pitcher whenever he's gotten a chance to be on the mound, this is one of the easier decisions of the entire list. Slam dunk future Hall of Famer, going to be first ballot, might be unanimous when it's all said and done. Imagine if he hits 500 career home runs, maybe strikes out 1,500 batters or something like that. Absolutely nuts. And now he has the All-Star, World Series, MVP, pedigree, all that stuff. He's going to have that in spades. So easy choice for Shohei. Next up, we got Colson Montgomery, and as much as I was impressed with his 2025, in his sample size of about 80 games, he had a very good season, and I do think that he's going to be a very good player. He has huge power upside. I see him as having the upside of an Adam Dunn type player who can stick at shortstop. That's pretty valuable, and he definitely impressed me with his glove overall in 2025 as well. There were some questions whether or not he can stick there. I'm going to need to see the glove work consistently for a few more seasons before I really buy into it, because he is huge and has, in some ways, we'll call it raw skills at that position. And additionally, I am still worried about that high strikeout rate, high whiff rate. I'm not sure 100% if that's going to translate to consistent success. I need to see a little bit more from him. But again, I don't think his ceiling is quite high enough to call him great. I think he's going to be a very good player. We'll say 3 to 4 wins per season. He could very easily, with a consistent performance over the next couple of years, jump up into great, maybe even consistent all-star caliber. But for now, I'm going to keep him in this section because I do think that there are players who deserve to be in this section who's a little bit better. Next up, Nick Kurtz. Now, this is tough, right? Because he's just got into the league. I don't want to overreact based on what he put up last year, because there was a luck component. If you look at some of his expected numbers, they weren't quite as good as what he ended up putting up in terms of the raw totals. I think his skill set is going to translate to a consistent all-star caliber player. I think that he could even potentially be a future Hall of Famer. Like, if you look at what he's capable of doing, it could be that level. But I just can't take a guy who played 111 games or whatever it was and stick him into these top 2 tiers at this point. I really can't. As much as I'd like to, need to see it a little bit longer from him. But I do see him as having that potential upside, and I see him as having a floor of a consistent all-star caliber player just because of how good his skill set is. Similar to Montgomery, he does need to work on his swing and miss. Otherwise, yeah, I think we have a really good player here. Ketel Marte, this right now is a perfect place for him. He is elite. He's been elite the last few seasons, and he's an iffy borderline Hall of Famer. If he continues what he's done since 2024 for the next 5 years, I think he could very easily be a Hall of Famer, even maybe the next 3 years. Overall, the dude's on track to be one of the best second basemen if he continues to stay at that position that we've ever seen overall. He's spent some time around the diamond otherwise, but I'm not kidding. Look at his career numbers in terms of OPS plus, slash line, even his average home runs per season. The dude's an absolute beast, and he's only getting better with age. So I think there's a high chance he ends up being in that Hall of Fame discussion. Whether or not he fully gets there, that remains to be seen. Freddie Peralta of the Brewers. I love Freddie Peralta. I think Freddie Peralta is really good, and he definitely is a consistent all-star caliber player. The thing is, he's never going to pitch quite enough innings, and he's never going to have, let's say, a low 2s ERA to be in consideration, in my opinion, for these top 2 spots. These are pretty elite spots, right? He's really good. He's one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball. I would consider him a top maybe 10 pitcher in Major League Baseball over the last few seasons. But again, he's limited in terms of his upside because he's not going to throw that many innings. And he's also just, the run prevention numbers are also going to be somewhat limited because he does give up a decent amount of home runs year to year. Kyle Stowers of the Marlins. See, I think this is a great spot for him. If you look at what he did last year in terms of his advanced totals, he has the profile to be a consistent all-star caliber player. Like, truly insane. A great eye at the plate, great power metrics. It was really impressive last year. He had an over 900 OPS, but I need to see it a little bit more. 2023 and 2024 were brutal for him, so he definitely needs to show me that he's more of 2025 than those seasons. Probably going to be around split the middle, let's say maybe an 800 to 850 OPS, more than likely. But regardless, that still is a pretty great player. Do need to see a little bit more before I can put him any higher than that. Paul Skeens, I mean, what he's done in a year and a half puts him in the slam dunk future Hall of Famer category for now. He's young enough he could drop out of that, right? And that does maybe seem a little aggressive, but he is the best pitcher to start a career ever. Period. Of anybody. He's better than Dwight Gooden in terms of his overall numbers to start a career. He's better than, name anybody. Like, an under 2 ERA through his first 2 seasons, through his first, 350 roughly career innings. Cy Young in his second year. Started the All-Star game, I believe, both seasons. The dude is going to be one of the best pitchers of all time, barring any kind of injuries or huge unforeseen drop-offs and stuff or something like that. The dude is quite simply the best pitcher in Major League Baseball if you consider his age in there, and a top 2 pitcher if you throw that out. Next up, Elly De La Cruz. You could consider Hunter Green for this spot, but he's just had problems staying healthy. So for right now, I'm going to run with Elly. I think last year, if you look at Elly's skill set, he might have stuck into more of this category, but I got to knock him down because the power numbers were down pretty much across the board last year. Hitting 20 home runs with the kind of light tower potential he has in Great American Ballpark, a little concerning. Cut down on the strikeouts, not a ton. The fielding metrics were a lot worse than they were in 2024. I need to see Elly get back to that consistent all-star level performance that we saw for flashes in 2023 and pretty much all of 2024 before I can consider him in that category. His stock has dropped pretty hard, in my opinion, in the last year or so. Byron Buxton, I would put him in the consistent all-star caliber. There's only one problem with Byron Buxton's mold as a player over the last, let's say, 5 seasons. Staying on the field. Last year, he played his most games since 2017. He had an outstanding season, another near 900 OPS, played decent defense in center field, stole a bunch of bases, didn't get thrown out pretty much at all. The dude's one of the best players in Major League Baseball. If he could stay healthy for 150 games, he would be a down-ballot contender for an MVP trophy. But I don't really see that as a long-term consideration for him. And he really is not even going to ever be on the cusp of a Hall of Fame induction because he just cannot rack up the counting stats to get into that conversation because of all of the frequent injuries. Cal Raleigh. Cal Raleigh, I think, is a great example of a player that belongs in this tier. Now, don't yell at me. Last year was a Hall of Fame caliber year. Arguably best season ever by a catcher. But when you look into his numbers, he broke in at 25 years old. He's been really good over the first 3 years of his career. Downright elite, like truly top 3 player in the sport last year. But it's going to be really hard to start a Hall of Fame candidacy at 25 years old when catchers generally don't age all that well. If he plays 10 seasons, averages 30 home runs a season, ends up hitting over 300 home runs, maybe averages around 5 wins by replacement a season, so he's in that 50 range, almost like a Buster Posey with way worse batting average, and trade that for a bunch of power, then maybe he could be in that conversation. But that's a big if. And I do need to see the downright elite historic level production for another season before I can consider him to be in any kind of slam dunk Hall of Fame conversation, which still might be a little premature even at that point. Corey Seager. Now, I think Corey Seager is probably going to be on the lower end of this overall list. This reminds me, I need to arrange this real quick in terms of the order of the players in that. So give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Now, I did arrange it, so this is my full tier ranking, essentially, right? So I consider Cattell to have a better future Hall of Fame chance right now than Cal Raleigh. I would consider Corey Seager to have a slightly worse chance than Raleigh. Now, my thinking behind that is this. Seager's done more. Seager has arguably been more impressive in terms of their overall breadth of their career. However, the standards for Cal Raleigh getting into the Hall of Fame, it's similar to the MVP conversation. If he hits 300 home runs and has 50 WAR, there's a high chance he gets in today's modern climate. Seager's almost at both of those totals. I think he will surpass both of those totals, but the threshold's a lot higher for an infielder. He is a shortstop, but he suffers from the same thing as Buxton. He just has a really, really hard time staying healthy. And when that's part of your MO, even though he has been, again, incredibly impressive, and I think 50 career WARs, basically a lock at this point, could challenge for 60, and at that point, he's more in that conversation. It also means he could potentially age really badly, right? If he starts going through a bunch of different injuries in his mid to late 30s. So he's a little bit more volatile, in my opinion. I still want to keep him in this tier because I do think he still has an outside chance at being a Hall of Famer, but it's definitely worse than both of these two guys. And it's really a bummer to see because he has the skill set for it. It's really just the injuries. Next up, we have PCA. And man, PCA would have been in this category because he's just so good with the glove. And in fact, I do think that takes him above Ellie at this point, in my opinion. But I'm not convinced this dude's not going to hit 240 every season with mid 700s OPS, 20 to 25 homers, and that elite glove work. Which, that's good. That's a very good player. I really do need to see some progression overall in terms of his development as a hitter. He has the pop, but man, he just chases way too often at this point. Hunter Goodman of the Rockies, I would consider him to be in this tier, slightly below Montgomery, because Montgomery does play shortstop, and he's shown some good defensive numbers versus Goodman, who has not shown great defensive numbers behind the plate. Has been serviceable, but has not been great. He does chase a lot, similar to PCA, and his advanced metrics, while they are good, they're not, downright 90th percentile elite. So, need to see a little bit more from him. Again, occasional all-star upside for both of these dudes. I can see them making all-star games in the future. But I need to see more from both of them before I can start considering them to be either great or consistent all-star caliber, even if it is within the realm of possibility. Brendan Donovan is on the lowest end of this list. Honestly, you could maybe even make a tier below this that's like good, very serviceable, valuable player, but not really having all-star upside. I know he made the all-star game last year, but that was more of a product of St. Louis just not having anybody who's downright elite at this point. He is forced into this list a little bit out of circumstance because they really don't have anybody else at this point. He's good. He's a very good player. I could see him even being traded for some valuable pieces. He plays all around the diamond. He's going to give you a 110 to 120 OPS plus every single season. Has some marginal pop, but again, he's going to end up being the very bottom of this list. Not really through any fault of his own. It's just kind of a weak pickings right now in St. Louis. Rafael Devers, it's funny they still got him in the Red Sox hat. He's in this elite right now, if a future Hall of Famer tier. And if anybody gives me any flack on that, I don't really know what you're looking at in terms of the numbers. The dude, if he continues hitting 30 home runs a season for the next 8 seasons, that'll be around 500 home runs. That's almost definitely a Hall of Famer, right? And I do think his defense has a chance to be a lot better at first base, so he'll stop siphoning off so much value playing third base because he's going to be playing that first base position for the Giants. He has a ton of offensive upside still. If you look at his metrics from this past year, he hits the ball incredibly hard. He's going to be a productive hitter for a long time. The strikeout rate this past season, a little concerning, but he also went through a lot of stress, and I think that might have affected him a little bit more than some people may give it credit for. Still, consistent all-star production easily, and potentially a future Hall of Famer. Bobby Witt Jr., and I got to be honest, I got to put him above Paul Skeens. And that says a lot because Paul Skeens is going to be the highest pitcher on this list today. There's just, in my opinion, there's no doubt about it. Based on what he's done so far in his career, he deserves to be in this top tier. But Bobby Witt Jr. is as close to a lock for a Hall of Famer who's under 27 years old as you can have. He literally is putting up prime Mike Trout-esque seasons with some of the best advanced fielding totals we've ever seen. What more can you ask? He is a 5-tool player to the max. He's going to hit you 20 to 30 home runs every season. He's going to have 5 to 15 triples. He's going to have 30 to 40 stolen bases. One of my favorite players in all of Major League Baseball, even as a Tigers fan who gets tortured by him on a season-to-season basis. And now we have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I would consider him in this same category as Devers. In fact, I would consider him above Devers just because I believe in his overall skill set at the plate. He might not be to quite the same level as Devers because he had a couple down seasons in terms of their raw totals through relatively similar ages. But I think Guerrero Jr. could be one of those guys who at 37 years old is still throwing up great numbers, right? It's going to be hard for him to continue to gain WAR at first base, especially as a first baseman who doesn't have great peripherals there. And for that reason, I do think Seager maybe has a little bit better of a chance of making something like the Hall of Fame. On top of that, too, Guerrero is young enough that a fall off could come in the future. It seems hard to anticipate now unless he starts hitting a ton of ground balls again. But I do think he's still going to be in that conversation for a future Hall of Famer. And if he continues what he did last season for the next 5 to 10 years, It's going to start getting into downright lock territory. Next up, we have Fernando Tatis Jr. of the Padres. I would consider him to be the highest level of this respective tier list in terms of consistent all-star caliber. He's a little bit better than Buxton because he does stay relatively more healthy. I think he has more upside. He could still hit 30 home runs as a platinum glove level right fielder. Don't think he's going to be quite as good with the glove as somebody like PCA, just because PCA has such incredible upside in that regard. But he still is one of the best fielders in Major League Baseball at his position. He's going to swipe you some bases. He's going to hit just some home runs. The upside hitting-wise, I don't think is as high as people used to think it was back in like 2021. But it's still a really, really good player. And if he continues what he's done for the last couple seasons and can stay healthy, I think he can start trending back towards the iffy future Hall of Famer category. The only thing that's kind of holding him back from that, in my opinion, is the fact that he lost a few years in there to both injuries and to that suspension. And that suspension is going to be hard to overcome in the future for Hall of Fame conversations. So it gets him a little bit lower in that overall meta narrative. Again, he's probably better than either of these two dudes, and arguably Corey Seager as well right now. But this is a list overall for the trajectory of the players' careers, not just for 2026. And that's where Yordan Alvarez is my selection for the Astros. And you could make a conversation, I think, that Yordan should be... You could make an argument for Hunter Brown or for Jeremy Pena for the best player on the Astros because of the injuries that Yordan sustained last season. However, I'm going to throw him in here, right? And that's because he has been, quite simply, one of the best Major League hitters we've seen to start a career. There we go. I do think that he has a little bit better of a chance at a Hall of Fame spot than somebody like Devers just because of his incredible hitting upside. The big knock on him is going to be his defense. He plays horrible defense in the outfield. He's going to be a DH. But I still believe in his ability to potentially make the Hall of Fame in the future beyond somebody like Devers. How will his skill set age? I don't want to see him continually keep dealing with injuries year to year. That could potentially limit him a little bit. Something that Guerrero has in his past that a little bit over him is just the consistent health. And Seager obviously has more of an opportunity to register more value because he's a shortstop. But I still see Yordan, if he can continue to hit like he has prior to 2024, which again, he sustained a bunch of injuries in that season, he easily could be a future Hall of Famer. It is going to require a little bit of intense legwork on his part, so we'll have to see a little bit more. But one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, if this was just a pure hitting list, he'd be in the upper tier for sure. Next up, Zach Neto. I don't think Zach Neto has the upside of a number of these other dudes, but I mean, we're on a 2-year run now of consistent, arguably 2.5-year run of consistent all-star level production from him. His performance has not waned at all really over the last 2 seasons. Some of the advanced fielding numbers disagree on how good of a fielder he is, but I think overall the consensus is he's pretty decent with the glove. He swipes a lot of bases. He hits a lot of homers for a shortstop. He's going to give you a 110 to 120 OPS plus. There's not really a huge hole in his game, unless you maybe kind of count the on-base percentage. He could walk more, but he's consistent, even if I don't think he quite has the elite level upside of any of these other guys in this tier. He's on the lower end of it, but still very impressive from Zach Neto. I'd like to see Mike Trout take this spot as the best player for the Angels once again. I just don't think he's the best player on the Angels anymore. It's kind of hard to balance those two things, right? Because he's a slam dunk future Hall of Famer, Trout is, but he also is not the best player on the Angels anymore. So it's a bit of an iffy minefield. I just decided to go with Neto, and I do think he belongs in this tier. Now we got James Wood. I think he belongs in this tier of the great. Need to see a bit more. I think he belongs at the highest level of it. The strikeout rate's pretty much it. If it wasn't for that, I think his skill set easily has him in the consistent all-star caliber category, but striking out 221 times in one season and playing pretty bad defense in left field limits your upside a little bit. I need to see some growth, some progression in both of those capacities before I can put him into the consistent all-star caliber. But if he can figure it out in those regards, he could jump up into this tier pretty quick. I think he has the upside hitting-wise of a Yordan if he can manage to make even close to the same level of contact, because he hits the ball incredibly, incredibly hard at this point in his career. He had a really good season last year, but yeah, some concerns. Ronald Acuna Jr. I think Acuna Jr. belongs in this tier. I'd actually consider him above, at this point, Big Dumper, just because he's been doing it at a lot younger of an age. Now, the reason I don't consider him in the slam dunk future Hall of Fame tier, because there's an argument, honestly, to put him in that tier because of his literal, like, just insane metric performance starting at age, 19, 20 years old. The injuries are concerning, man. They're really concerning. I mean, he could be one of those dudes we end up looking back and it's like, he hit 400 homers, stole 300 bases, had a really good slash line, but it just never ended up really coming together because he missed on average 30 to 40 games a season. I do think he's above Raleigh because Raleigh got started so much later. But right now, in terms of overall value, I think Raleigh probably would have him beat. And again, I just don't like the way the injuries are trending for Acuna Jr. in recent years. Crochet is one of the elite level starters in Major League Baseball. I would consider him just below the tier of iffy future Hall of Famers just because he, again, got started really late, got drafted out of college, and only started starting games consistently in 2024. I don't see him as having the kind of upside really to make the Hall of Fame unless he continues to ball out. Almost has like a Zach Wheeler level resurgence. But for now, I think that he belongs in this consistent because his skill set's just so elite level, right? I think he's similar to Freddie Peralta to me with much higher upside and I think better chance to be consistent going forward. Jose Ramirez, I would put him above Paul Skeens right now because, again, Skeens has not done it for long enough for me to... If he goes through some significant arm troubles, he's going to fall down pretty quick. Jose Ramirez is a lock for the Hall of Fame right now, in my opinion. If he hit 15 homers and stole 15 bases and batted .250 for the next 3 years, he's in. No doubt about it. He could go down potentially as the best third baseman of all time. Literally, just go compare some of his numbers to some of his historical contemporaries at that position. One of my favorite players in Major League Baseball, again, as a Tigers fan, the dude just eats us alive, but man, his at-bats are fun to watch, and it's always cool to see a guy have that five-tool ability as a third baseman. It's kind of rare. Now, Kyle Schwarber's, again, kind of a controversial pick here. You could very easily consider this to be Zach Wheeler's spot, and I wouldn't necessarily argue with you. It's just the level of injury he sustained last year. I cannot in good conscience claim that he's the best player on the Phillies right now. That's, again, where it's tough to make those kind of designations. But I'm going to go with Schwarber because he's been so consistently good in the power department. Last year, he really took a step forward overall in the hitting department. I could see him as potentially being a future Hall of Famer if he balls completely out for the next 5 seasons. I think that's a tough sell to me. Do I see him hitting 40 home runs a year for the next 5 seasons to get to roughly around 500? Maybe not. It's also hard for me to see a guy with a 220 roughly career batting average getting into the Hall, even with close to 500 homers. But we'll see. I think that's a possibility. Right now, I would just consider him below some of these other guys because of their ability to rack up so much value relative to him as a DH. And again, do you believe that he's the 2025 version of himself or more the 2023 version of himself, right? Because he could be in between that. And if he's at an 850 OPS, he's not even going to sniff this tier. Next up, we got Junior Caminero. I think he's going to be the highest ranking member of this respective tier. It's not anything against Caminero, but the defense at third base is shoddy to say the least, does not have great play discipline right now, and hits a ton of ground balls. That didn't manage to affect him too much last year, but part of that was because he was playing in a little league ballpark. If he does it next year again, he hops into this consistent all-star caliber tier easily, and he's so young that if he does it for a few seasons, I think he's going to jump up into this iffy future Hall of Fame tier. But those questions, in my opinion, knock him below a little somebody like a Kurtz because Kurtz just has such insane both upside at the plate and the hitting profile of elevating fly balls to believe he can do it consistently. Caminero could drop down to 25 home runs in Tropicana along with the ground ball rate if he can't get that adjusted a little bit and can't adjust to his new home ballpark, which is totally a possibility. But again, too, I mean, the defense at third base needs to get a little bit better as well before he starts being one of the better metric performers in Major League Baseball. Tarik Skubal, in my opinion, slots into the end right now of this tier, right? And the reason is because there's not really a good cogent argument you can make for him being a future Hall of Famer based on what he's done right now. Like, you can't. He's in this tier right now, slam dunk. It reminds me of Raleigh. He's in this tier in terms of the overall performance. He's the best pitcher in Major League Baseball right now, in my opinion. But the dude got started relatively late, and it's not a foregone conclusion he's not going to deal with some arm troubles later on in his career just because of the type of power he generates on the mound. Now, I still do think in the changing landscape for the standards of Hall of Fame pitchers, he could end up getting there, right? If he goes out for the next 8 seasons and averages 230 strikeouts a season, on top of what he's already accomplished, that's almost the Jacob deGrom argument, right? Because deGrom is potentially an iffy future Hall of Famer as well, but it's going to require some shifting standards for the Hall of Fame, and it's going to require some things to really break his way. So I think he's on the very end of this tier for that reason. I still think he's one of the most elite players in Major League Baseball to this day. How that'll age, I'm not sure. Next up, we got Juan Soto, and this might seem a little crazy, but I think on this list, he's the second-ranked player in terms of future Hall of Famers. There is almost no doubt in my mind he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, within 3 years, he should be a lock for it, just because of his crazy on-base ability and power relative to his age. There is an outside chance this dude hits 600 home runs with a 400 career on-base percentage, and potentially more strikeouts than walks. I mean, that's ridiculous. There's a reason he gets compared to the modern-day Ted Williams. He obviously strikes out a lot more than Williams ever did. It's changed game when people make that as a direct one-to-one comparison. But he's the equivalent of that in today's modern terms. The dude is going to go down as one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball history, barring a catastrophic injury or ridiculous age-related decline. But I don't think this is too high of a placement. The dude is going to be a Hall of Famer, almost without a doubt, and even more so than the other guys behind him. Next up, we got Gunnar Henderson. I'm going to be real with you. Last season, based on what he had done and based on the metrics he had put up, I might have considered him at the end of this tier. But now, last year was an all-star caliber season, don't get me wrong. But the power dropped a little bit. I still think he has more upside than a Tatis. I still think he's going to be healthier than a Buxton. I think he's going to have a great metric performance. But I need to see him get back to hitting 30 home runs in a season to be considered a potential future Hall of Famer. Could he get there potentially the Corey Seager way? Maybe. It's possible. But Seager has had a level of consistency going into his older age that's really impressive. And on top of that, too, there are still some questions long-term about Henderson's future at shortstop. He made a decent improvement last year, but I need to see that for a second consecutive season in order to really buy in, on top of the fact he needs to pair that with a little bit more power to really hop into the end of this tier, in my opinion. And last up, we have Aaron Judge. I think Aaron Judge deserves to be second. I think he's even above Juan Soto. And the reason is because I think we're going to look at Aaron Judge when he retires as the greatest right-handed hitter in modern baseball history. I think the profile is going to age incredibly well. I think he's going to have 80 to 90 career WAR. I think he might win a couple more MVP awards. He has an outside chance at 700 home runs. He got his start at the age of 25 years old. He has an outside chance at 700. That's how many homers he's been hitting in recent years. And he was at his best last year in terms of his overall hitting ability. He hit 331 with 50 bombs. He's a lock for the Hall of Fame. There's pretty much no question in my mind he's going to make it. And I do see him as having even more upside than like a Juan Soto because of that raw power potential. And he gets on base an incredible amount right now. All right, that's my full list for every MLB team's best player ranked. Again, this is my exact ranking, right? So Cal Raleigh's a little bit above Corey Seager. Paul Skeens is a little bit behind Jose Ramirez. And again, one more time, I just want to stress, this is not just for 2025. This is the best player on these teams at this current point based on not only what they did last year, but also what they've done in their prior careers, trying to mix those two and balance those as best I could. Let me know your choices for this list and what you would have, as well as if you think you disagree with any of my placements or picks. Thanks for watching.
All right, everybody. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. And if you did, consider checking out any of these other videos on your screen right now for other content just like this. Also, if you ever see anything you'd like to see me detail in the video, feel free to reach out to my email, basebpoet@gmail.com. And if I end up using your idea, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.